All right, welcome back to Bible and Blues, and we had some technical issues. I almost thought this wasn't going to happen, but oh my gosh, here we are. We're doing Legion, the season finale. I'm trying to get my screen in order so I can block my actual face. So I'll look at the camera, not my face. It's amazing. It looks better if I look at you. I don't know why. So we start off, this is episode 8. This is the season finale. The interviewer. That's all. You know, on IMDb, they only name him as the interviewer. Anyway, the interviewer is in burn recovery. Remember, he was in episode 1. He was the one that got severely burned, and we saw him at the end of episode 7 with severe burns and loss of an eye. So we see a little bit of his story post burning. Turns out, they had to have one, right? So he's gay, he's married, and he has an adopted African American son. Person of color. What's the right word these days? I don't know. It'll change once I figure it out. So they discuss it, and they discuss how he's going to be in. They want to have a desk job. He's like, well, that's great so long as that desk is ready to move, because he's not going to stop. He basically he watched all this happen, and now he is out to finish what he started. He wants to get David. He's blaming David for everything that happened. So couldn't be Division 3's fault. So then we go back to Summerland, and the scene is the interviewer is there in a red suit. And you see his burns, and he has a really cool walking cane. Then all of the men in black, assault uniforms around as 20 guys or so with guns. They're all ready to go. And David's like, no, that's not going to happen. And he piles them up. I thought it was pretty cool how he did it. He piled them up into a column with his mental powers. Then it turns out that in that messed up eye that the interviewer has, this is his right eye. He actually has a camera installed, so Division 3 is watching what's happening, and in the you see them. David says, after he piles all of them up, he's like, okay, we need to go talk. So he's like, he's not going to kill the guy. He's not going to kill anybody. But he wants to have a talk about what's going on. And then we see the people at Division 3 who are watching all this. And they're like, well, Team A has failed. They're ready to send in Team B. And like, nope, not yet. So, and then we see, a little touching moment between David and Sydney where he's, talking about being, a schizophrenic, and Sydney's like, you're not that person. And he's like, the thing is that, the big problem with being a schizophrenic is eventually you start to believe that, there is no problem. And that's when the disease really takes a hold of you, because then you find out that there really is a problem, and it really completely screws you up, and there's no coming back from that. So he's kind of worried about that. So anyway, so they put the interviewer into an interview room. And they put Carrie with him, and Carrie's just kind of pacing the room because, no matter what he does, Carrie can probably take him. Autonomy wants him killed. Autonomy just wants to, get rid of him, kill him, and then the problem is solved, right? So then we, I'm going to try to move fairly quick for this because I have to get up really early tomorrow. I have a meeting. So Oliver and Melanie. Oliver still doesn't remember Melanie, but Melanie is going to she tries to kind of approach him and says, hey, we need to, let's talk for a minute. You want to go have dinner sometime? And he's like, well, will you remind me of somebody? Because he still doesn't really remember. So then Melanie, she's kind of morose about the whole scenario. And so, she goes to the interviewer, and she asks his name. Turns out he calls himself Clark. Is that his name? Isn't it? Doesn't matter. Let's call him Clark. Clark is basically not willing to give an inch on anything here. So, so she's like, she's like, I tend to agree with David. We don't want a war, blah blah blah, right? So then, next she takes him out to where David is, and David is outside and he's meditating, 5 feet off the ground. So, okay, good for him. So he's meditating, and it's kind of like for a control thing. You can see you get the sense that he's still struggling. That Amal Farouk is still in there fighting for dominance and trying. Even though they kind of blocked him away, he still wants to get in there for control. So Carrie says, you know what, I'm going to boost their power some. We're going to get you, and I don't know how long it'll hold, but we're going to try that. So then they're sitting across from each other, like cafeteria or something like that. And while they're doing that, thing happens to Sydney, and Sydney gets pulled into the astral plane, okay, in her own mind, and Sydney is now with Lenny. Lenny does not look good. Lenny is looking really rough. But what the heck? I mean, why is Lenny able to get into her? Is able to do this? Well, it turns out that because of Sydney and David's contact in the astral plane, Lenny was able to get a little bit of a grip on her. Not strong enough to like she has with David. She's still technically locked away with David, but Lenny can reach out and maybe not contact David, but can tune in to Sydney, and So Amal, Lenny, wants to make a deal with Sydney because and she uses some scare tactics of if he gets rid of in order to get rid of me, you're gonna have to kill David unless I choose to go on my own. That's the basic thing. So then boom, she's out of the astral plane, she's back in the room where the negotiations are taking, and then David collapses. And because David was like, just sitting there telling Clark, "Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid." That's what he keeps saying. Just don't be afraid. And Clark's like, "I'm not afraid. I have the entire backing of of the U.S. government," kind of thing. So then Sydney, and they're trying, and then David is collapses, and Clark's like, "Well, what's going on?" Like, there's no problem. It's like, there's no problem. And then Sydney kind of blabs off to Clark, about what's going on, which they don't agree with, but boom, cat's out of the bag. So then they rush him over to Carrie's lab, and they put him onto the table, and they have to get Farouk out of his head. Then Oliver's sitting in the room, doing the final adjustments. And, Oliver is a very smart guy. He essentially built Summerland with Carrie and Melanie. So he's a very smart man. So and he's also fairly powerful in his own right. So the whole idea is they got to pull Farouk out, okay? And as he gets ready to leave, as Oliver gets ready to leave, he puts on some pretty cool goggles and says, and boom goes the dynamite. Turns the switch on a remote control, and leaves. He gets everything going, and then Pink Floyd starts playing, which is really cool. And during this time, David is reliving everything that he's been through backwards. So he's starts with the present, he's working his way back, and throughout this, he's seeing Amal Farouk throughout it. As he sees Amal in these spots, you see Amal kind of dissolve in each one. So it's just kind of so now he's starting to see where he was in his life throughout the whole thing. Then they get he gets all the way back to being a child. Okay, and when he gets back there, he's a baby, not the child, but the baby. And Lenny shows up. Actually, it shows up as the yellow-eyed devil, not as Lenny at first. And David knows that that he's there behind him. Yeah, it's his own mind, so of course he knows. So he turns around and he freezes Amal Farouk, and he says, "No, I want to talk to Lenny." And then we see Lenny, crazy Lenny. Okay, we're talking crazy. Her hair's all messed up. She's got abrasions on her face. Her eyes are no longer any brown or anything. It's so Um, so he starts talking. So he starts talking to starts telling her, I mean, it seems like he's in total control of what's going on. And that, as during all of this, uh, uh, they, Sydney had actually flipped a switch so Clark could actually see what was going on. She flipped a switch so that there's a monitor that went on in the interview room where he was at, and so of course through that right eye, Division 3 seeing what's happening too. Throughout all this whole thing, David's body hasn't been looking like it's going very well. So, good scenario here. So, and in the end, after talking to after talking to Lenny, it seems like, all of a sudden a set of hands goes up and it turns out it's his own hands and he's choking himself. I mean, he's actually going for it to kill himself by choking himself in his mind. So keep up with that one. And Sydney, who is, bear in mind, she's had this conversation with Lenny and, she's buying it. She's buying into the whole thing. She rushes into the room and kisses him. This allows Lenny, Amal Farouk, to exit his body, okay, into her body. And now he's in her body with her powers to be able to transfer. And he turns around and Carrie, who has seen this happening, had rushed out of the interview room, runs in there, and now she's in the room with Sydney, and who is now Lenny, and his red eyes and everything, and he shows yellow eyes, and gets touched on the forehead by Sydney. So now Amal Farouk is now inside Carrie, okay, the girl. This is not good because remember, Carrie's a BA. She's tough. She can fight pretty much anybody. So now, pretty much, Carrie 2 takes out everybody. Okay, she takes. We see Tommy running in with his Tommy gun, getting ready, shooting people, shooting at her. Doesn't. Of course, misses. Takes out. Kicks Carrie, the old guy in the spleen. And probably burst his spleen. He actually at the end said something about that. Takes out Autonomy. Sydney, of course, is out because of the transference. David's still out. Walks around the corner, and there's Melanie, and she points her fingers like a gun, just goes, and Melanie goes down. Okay, so all of them are out. So she and she goes into a hallway, and very short time, the entire time, Oliver is still working in the power room of some kind, electrical circuit room. Incredible waste of space as far as the utility room is concerned, if you ask me. However, he's working, and all of a sudden Oliver says, Melanie. So all of a sudden, here at this point, Oliver remembers who Melanie is. Great news, right? Like, really? You did that now? Anyway. And then, Carrie 2 is in a hallway, and down floats David, from the hallway or whatever, and down floats, down he floats to, and they charge each other, and as they're charging, David glows a white, and Carrie 2 glows a red, orange. They contact. There's a big kind of explosion kind of thing, and he boots Amal Farouk out of Carrie, and next thing you know, you see this shadowy kind of thing flying through, goes into that power room that Oliver was in. The door shuts, and then out walks Oliver, and it's like, okay, so now Amal is inside of Oliver. Great, right? So Clark is still alive through all this. You just about got killed by Carrie 2. Sydney's still out. Carrie's still out. Autonomy's still out. Melanie's still out. And Oliver, walks out, gets into a car with this right-hand drive, and drives away. And that's we're pretty close to the end here. So Everybody is technically speaking okay. They're not dead. They're probably they are injured, but but Oliver is left, and as he's driving along, we see Lenny suddenly looking pretty darn healthy in the passenger seat, and Oliver's talking to her like a friend. So it seems like he's a willing participant in this, perhaps. I don't know. He spent 20 years in the astral plane, so at this point in time, any companionship's better than none. So he spent 20 years alone. So Lenny is and Lenny's like, someplace warm. Let's go someplace warm. So and that's how the episode ends. So what did you think of the show? I liked the show. I really liked the season, and I thought it was a lot of fun to watch. There was some stuff I learned. I learned about the Shadow King. Didn't know about Shadow King, did I, D-Zone? And you told me a little bit. Yes, you did some research. Maybe you don't know a lot, but come on, you knew more than I did. But Amal Farouk and the Shadow King, but all the characters. These characters are people I didn't know. So it was really great way to dig further into the Marvel universe. I think they're doing a great job. FX is did a great job with this show this season. Definitely expecting it to come back next year, without a doubt. Looking forward to it. So, what are your thoughts on the show? Where are we going to be going? Is Oliver just going to be, is he going to hide out for a while? Is the next season going to be an issue of battling between our Summerland people and Division 3? Or is it going to be they're going to be chasing Oliver because they know Amal Farouk is a bad guy and they have to get him? What's it going to be? I don't know. You tell me what you think it's going to be. So it is getting late. I've got to get going. I want to get this edited out and put out so you guys can watch it and enjoy it and give me some information. I want to know. Let's make this a conversation. Makes it a lot more fun. God bless. I will talk at you later.